Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen we're making some buttery, melt-in-your-mouth shortbread cookies. So let's get started. First off, in the bowl of your stand mixer, or a large bowl if you're using a hand mixer, you want 10 tablespoons of room temperature unsalted butter. That's 142 grams, and your butter should really be nice and room temperature. You can press into it fairly easily, but it's not melting. And 2. I also want half a teaspoon of vanilla extract for some lovely flavor. And I'm measuring it out this time as opposed to just pouring because you do not want too much liquid in these cookies. Pop your paddle attachment on and we're gonna beat this until it's nice and creamed. My butter is nicely creamed up. The consistency is beautiful and soft, but I'm not running it on high for 5 minutes to pump a lot of air in. That is a different cookie. Once your butter is creamed, it's time to add half a cup of powdered sugar in. And I would always recommend adding half a teaspoon of salt for some nice contrast. Mix this up until it's nice and combined, but once again, you are not pumping a ton of air into here, you're just creaming it together. I love the story of shortbread cookies because it involves Scottish people avoiding English taxes. There was a tax on biscuits, or like basically their version of cookies, and Scottish bakers wanted to avoid this tax. So they called these cookies shortbread, and short tells you the texture. Short texture is crumbly and like just melts in your mouth. And it's like bread because there's flour in there. So these cookies are all about tax evasion and defiance. Shortbreads, not cookies, originated somewhere in the mid-16th century. By the way, if you like my videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week and also some shorts too. I always like to give this a scrape down just to make sure the butter at the bottom comes back up and is fully mixed in. Right now, it's time to add our flour in, but this is the crucial point and the place where things can go awry. If you add too much flour, your shortbread cookies are gonna be super dry and crumbly, and they're not even gonna stick together. So you really wanna have a correct amount out, which means grab a scale or fluff your flour in the canister, sprinkle it into your measuring cup, and level it off. So we want 180 grams or 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Just go ahead and use your scale for the most accurate results. Perfect. One more scrape down. I make shortbread cookies every holiday season on repeat, but I actually love making these in different variations. This is a classic shortbread cookie, but you could brown the butter if you want some extra depth of flavor. You could add tons of mix-ins like chopped toasted pecans or walnuts, chocolate chunks, dried cranberries, the list goes on, even sprinkles for like a funfetti style cookie. Everything's gonna be delicious and it's so versatile. You can really make this recipe your own. Plop your mixer head down. We're gonna mix on low and slowly add our flour in. Once all your flour is mixed in, we're gonna scrape the bowl down one final time. This point can be a bit scary because it looks so dry and crumbly right now. And you might think, oh my gosh, I added too much flour or there's not enough butter. This looks wrong because you're used to a normal cookie batter. But this is correct. It just needs to mix a tiny bit more. See, very dry and crumbly. Go back to mixing and I'm just looking for this to come together a bit more. My dough's come together, I am not over mixing it, and now it's time to shape this into a rectangular prism, or like a box shape. The old geometry teacher in me got very excited when I wrote this recipe. It's like, yes, a practical application for geometry. Kind of. It's time to plop your dough onto your clean countertop. And we're just gonna shape this into a rectangle. Although you don't have to, you could shape this into a log and have slice and bake cookies. And in fact, this dough is a great thing to make when you have a few spare minutes. You can make your dough, you can make different batches of it with different mix-ins and just freeze this for later. Then, when you wanna make some cookies, let it thaw a bit, slice them up and bake them. Little bit of flour for the countertop. Once your dough is all shaped up nicely, it's time to transfer it either into some plastic wrap, or I have some waxed cloth here, just so this can be chilled but not dry out. My dough is ready to go into the fridge now. We just need it to firm up before we slice it, so give it at least an hour, but you could do this in the morning and come back to it in the evening really easily too. In you go. Towards the end of your chill time, preheat your oven to 350, and now we are ready to slice our shortbread. Very firm. You're gonna cut these into 1/2-inch thick slices, and you want a nice sharp knife for this. Your cookies are gonna get a little help to bake evenly in the form of some pokes. These dots are going to let air circulate inside, and they're gonna be so evenly baked and delicious. Transfer your cookies onto a baking sheet, leaving 1 inch of space in between, not because they're gonna spread so much, but because you want air to circulate in between them. Air circulation is really important for an even bake, and that's one of the reasons I suggest using a rimmed baking sheet. It's not a scientific experiment, but I really feel that when your baking sheet is just flat and not rimmed, the cookies get a bit more scorched on the outside. Now use a fork or a skewer to create a pattern, and you're just gonna press into the shortbread cookies. This is very utilitarian. I like having a little pattern, so the skewer is a bit better for that. Again, really fun to do with kids. If you want your cookies to look extra sharp, you can use a knife and just trim the edges. Totally optional. Don't worry if it's not your vibe. It's fine if they look homemade. Our shortbread cookies are ready to go into the oven, 350 for about 10 minutes, rotating halfway through, and you'll know they're done when the bottoms are just taking on some color. Every oven is different, so keep an eye on them. I prefer mine to be just almost golden, not burnt, so you can take them out earlier if your oven's running hot. In you go. And just like that, these delicious cookies are ready to enjoy. The magical thing about these cookies is they dissolve on your tongue and are just so satisfying to eat. They're perfectly sweet. I hope you get a chance to make this recipe, and if you like my videos, hit that subscribe button and check out my cookie playlist.